All right, guess who it is? It's Elliotte Friedman doing his thing, heading back over onto the Instigators Show podcast on WGR 550 Sports Radio in Buffalo. Let's go over this article published on the website talking about what Friedman said in his latest segment on the show. Friedman says the Colorado Avalanche could be dark horse suitor for Jack Eichel. The Sportsnet hockey insider Elliotte Friedman joined the Instigators on Thursday with more on the Sabres captain. Now, I'll just say this right here. They say he joined the show on Thursday. It's Monday as I record this. The video's coming out on Tuesday. So whatever's going on here with the timelines, I'm not really too sure. However, we have ourselves not only just one team to talk about, but two, because this article, I'll leave a link in the description, by the way, as always, if you want to go ahead and read this on your own time. Earlier last week, TSN hockey insider Darren Dreger reported that the Minnesota Wild are expected to make an offer for the former second overall pick at the 2015 draft, considering they recently bought out the remaining 4 years on the contracts of Suter and Parise. The moves freed up more than $10.3 million in cap space for the upcoming season. Guess how much Jack Eichel makes? Hey, he makes $10 million till 2026, so there's a very obvious, very coincidental puzzle piece, if you may. Obviously, nothing's guaranteed. It's just, hey, if you wanted to go ahead and do that, a buyout of Suter and Parise does make sense financially. In an interview on Thursday with the Instigators, Sportsnet hockey insider Elliotte Friedman also named the Wild as a possibility for Eichel, though he questioned the feasibility of such a deal. Interestingly enough, though, Friedman threw out a dark horse contender to land the Sabres captain, the Colorado Avalanche. Here's the quote right here. Don't go crazy with that, but they can do it. They've sort of been around the elite of the league. They've been knocked out in the second round over the last 2 years. If Landeskog moves on, Friedman says the Avalanche could look to replace him with Jack Eichel. I do wonder, Friedman says, if Landeskog does leave, does Colorado do something as a surprise like that? I think a lot of these moves are dependent on what teams are having happen to them. The rest of the article talks about the medical side of things, the fact that Eichel's surgery is a big deal. We've discussed this a ton, and what exactly it is other teams are looking for, and how exactly the Sabres are reacting to this entire situation too, because obviously, if Eichel is going to be uncertain for next season, maybe the next few years, he wants this surgery, and the Sabres don't want him to get it, other teams need to be sure, okay, we need to get this guy, and we need to check up his medical records, we need to know what it is that we're acquiring here in a trade. The article also says here, mentioned by Friedman, that the Buffalo Sabres are being careful with whom they share Eichel's medical records to. I don't know if any teams have seen his medical records or reports. Eichel has to approve it if other teams go out there and view them. I think he would, Friedman says, but from what I understand, the Sabres have to agree with it too. From what I understand about Buffalo is, they don't want to give Eichel's medical reports to anybody. They want to know the team they're giving it to is a legitimately serious team with a serious offer. And what teams would constitute a serious offer? Well, it's the prospect pool, it's all the other stuff, draft picks and whatnot. We already spoke about all this stuff on previous videos right here with Jack Eichel and the Friedman quotes talking about how the Eichel price has apparently lessened a little bit, how it's no longer appearing to be that huge package of a top 6 forward, a top 4 defenseman, a first round top 10 pick, and other prospects as well. Friedman implied earlier on last week that it was a little bit lesser than that. So now that we have this in stone and we have the idea set in place, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild as Jack Eichel suitors. Now, I'd been holding off on making a video about the Wild this entire time, mostly because I just didn't really thought that kind of video topic would move the needle, but now we have 2 new teams. It's a lot more easier to transition into that kind of thing here, But the Minnesota Wild are in a spot where I honestly think they're on the up and up, man. We already know exactly what happened with Suter and Parise. It's kind of poetic in a way. They signed their incredibly long, incredibly expensive contracts under Chuck Fletcher the same day all those years ago. And now, in 2021, they get bought out on the same day too. Obviously, we discussed the $10 million in cap space being freed up. Eichel fits that mold just fine, $10 million. But it's gotten to a point now with the Wild where I'm like, yeah, they could afford to buy out a Suter and a Parise. Maybe not long term because the buyout penalties and all that are going to be pretty big for a long time. But The Minnesota Wild are a team that I'm really interested in seeing where they go in the next few years. Just the names that they already have on their roster, Kevin Fiala is an absolute monster, and I love that guy for sure. Kirill Kaprizov, nothing more to say about this guy that hasn't already been said, and you still have a lot of great prospects in the system too. Judd Brackett going over there to the Wild doing some fantastic things, man. We know how good that guy is when it comes to draft picks. Marco Rossi, great pickup at number 9. Adam Beckman out of the WHL, you have yourselves a fantastic pick there too. Hovanov out of the QMJHL, he's fantastic. Vladislav Firstov in the college system. And you also have Marat Kusnedinov out of Russia, who is looking to be one of the most capable prospects out there in the entire NHL systems. It was crazy because they had the top rookie prospect guy in the KHL in Kaprizov, they had the top WHL scorer in Adam Beckman, they had the top OHL guy in Marco Rossi, and they had the second best QMJHL guy in Hovanov behind Alexis Lafrenière last year. This team just has so much to go for when it comes to its long-term potential that I think if a Jack Eichel comes in here and he solidifies himself in that kind of system, then he could be really, really strong growing up with all the other guys here. I didn't even talk about Matthew Boldy just once because this team and its prospect pool is just so gosh darn stacked. They have the assets, I think, if you want to go out there and say, all right, Buffalo, you want prospects, you want picks, you want forwards, we got you. So, for Minnesota, it's a lot more easier to see that fit now, especially after the Suter and Parise buyouts. As for Colorado, though, oh boy, this one's gonna be tough. We already spoke about the entire Gabriel Landeskog negotiations and how poorly those are going because he's apparently frustrated with how much the Avalanche is giving him and the entire process as a whole, so much to the point that he might actually go to another team and demand a boatload of money. But if you end up losing out on Landeskog, is it Jack Eichel that comes in and fills that hole? Because I'm telling you right here, if you lose out on Landeskog, you will have to lose out on some other stuff in order to get an Eichel. That's it. Like, that's been the price. We know you have to give up a big package if you want to get Jack Eichel. But what that means for your hockey team if you're Colorado, sure, you may be losing out on Landeskog and adding Eichel, but what is the price of all the other stuff that you're losing too? You have other prospects, you have other forwards and whatnot that you can get out there and send in a trade. But the Colorado Avalanche and their draft picks, I'll let you know right here, spoiler alert, they're not really too high. You might actually have to go out there and send even more stuff away to Buffalo if you're Colorado looking to get Eichel on your squad. Furthermore, you have to re-sign Nathan MacKinnon in a few years. You have to give Bowen Byram a contract in a few years. He's making $900,000. Cale Makar is in a similar spot right now. He needs money too. This Avalanche team, while being so good cap-wise the past few years, things are starting to catch up to them because they just have so many good young pieces that need extra money now. Is it appropriate to go out there and add a Jack Eichel? Is it enough to say, okay, well, we're getting rid of Landeskog. He's not going to re-sign here. That's maybe $7-8 million freed up from our cap. We can trade Nazem Kadri, a prospect, few prospects actually, maybe a few other lower picks and another defenseman to Buffalo for Eichel. There we go. Nazem Kadri, his big cap hit is out. Eichel's coming in here. Is that worth it? Let me know in the comments what you think about the Colorado Avalanche making a kind of trade like this work. Furthermore, is it really worth it to have MacKinnon and Eichel on the same team? Like, you would have probably the best 1-2 center punch down the middle ever since, like, prime Crosby, prime Malkin, right? Like, I mean, those guys are still really good right now, but, like, they're two franchise-defining players. MacKinnon and Eichel both could be those, and is it really worth it in this day and age to do that? I know you could say, okay, the Penguins won 3 cups, they went to the finals 4 times with Malkin and Crosby, they're fantastic. Why would you not want to get Eichel if you're Colorado? I'm just bringing up the idea from an idealistic point of view, because obviously, you know, it is something you need to think about at the very least. Okay, if you get Eichel, he's been the main guy in Buffalo for so long. He knows how to be a main guy. What if you give this guy a role that is no longer that main guy? He's the second-hand man, the third-hand man behind MacKinnon and Rantanen or whatever. He's not going to be playing with those guys, maybe except for the power play. And even then, it's going to be tough having him in any position on the power play because Makar is the power play quarterback, MacKinnon is the flank, and Rantanen is there too. Are you just going to give him Landeskog's spot in the middle? I don't know if Eichel would succeed there. Talk to me in the comments, though, what you think about these ideas here. Eichel to the Wild, Eichel to the Avalanche. To me, the more scarier one is Colorado because they've already been so good, and if you added Jack Eichel, things could be fantastic. It's kind of like Taylor Hall in Boston, to be honest. I get similar vibes from that situation there. But talk to me in the comments either way what you think. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rolls 99. And bye.